everybody. Welcome to the Modular Community Livestream. This is our first live stream in 2024. So, welcome everyone. Hope you're having a great 2024. Love the fireworks, right? Uh, yeah, I like these. This is a warm welcome to the community livestream. We have an exciting list of topics today. The main focus is the recent release of Mojo SDK 0.7. We'll talk about all the new features there. We'll dive deep into some of the specific features. Come on in. We'll give a minute for people to join in. As you join in, let us know where you're joining from. It's always nice to see folks joining from all over the world. So welcome. And this is primarily a Q&A live stream, which means this is your opportunity to ask questions, get them answered live. We do have topics that we'll walk through, specific features and demos, but we're really here to answer questions. While you come in, let us know where you're joining us. Hi from Central Europe, from Switzerland. Awesome. Toronto. Welcome. I'm here in California, Bay Area. So let's start with a quick round of introductions here, and we'll then dive into the topics. So welcome again. Welcome. I'll go first. I'm Shashank. I'm a developer advocate at Modular. And who wants to go next?
Hey, I'm Jack. I'm a developer advocate as well at Modular.
Awesome.
Hey, I'm Steph. I'm one of the developers at Modular. I use Mojo a lot and sometimes contribute back to Mojo.
Well, welcome, Steph and Laszlo.
Hi, I'm Laszlo. I'm a compiler engineer and I work on Mojo, primarily on the front end.
Awesome. Fantastic. So Steph and Laszlo are here. That makes me feel more comfortable taking some of your questions, all your deep technical questions. We have more folks joining in from Brazil, from New York City, Fremont, California, not too far away from here. How are you enjoying the rain in Fremont? We're having quite a downpour here right now. Hi from Nigeria. Thank you so much for taking time. I know many of you are joining from places where the time zone is not the most comfortable for you to join. It's 11 a.m. here in California. All right, I think let's get started now. We are a couple of minutes in. Let's get started. So the topic of today's live stream is Mojo SDK 0.7. So this version became available a few days ago. And this is our latest release of Mojo SDK. We have a bunch of new features, also some changes and fixes and all that. We'll go through them. We did do a blog post. Feel free to walk through this if you haven't seen it after the live stream. Right now, we'll briefly touch upon some of the features, and we'll dive deep into specific ones that you may be interested. More folks joining in. I love the rain. Glad to hear. People from Turkey, Germany, thank you. Welcome. Let us know if the time zone doesn't suit you very well. If you prefer it at other time, we can try move this around. Welcome. And there are already a few questions in for feature requests. We'll get to them. So let's do a quick recap of the launch. We released this on Jan 25th when we released the Mojo SDK. It's now available for download if you do Modular install Mojo or Modular update Mojo. So one of the main we have two buckets of features broadly. We cover in the blog post, and we'll go through specific ones in a little more detail. So there are language and standard library features, and there are some enhancements to the CLI and the language server, which is what you use with your IDE, Visual Studio. We have now a Mojo native dictionary type. Hooray! Like many of you who have been asking for this, that is awesome to have. And I know Steph will dive a little more deeper into this, what you can do with it today, what are some of the constraints and how to use it and all that. There is also new features for getting access to sort of how many CPU cores are there, which becomes relevant for specific tasks when you want to parallelize stuff. There's also new reference type. This is in early prototype. Laszlo will be spending more time on this. As we get started, this is a new feature as well, and we labeled it prototype because we'll share what it is, but also sort of what the forward-looking direction of that will be. There are a couple more features in the standard library that we briefly talk about. There are debug assertions in standard library, which you can use the enable assertions flag when you call Mojo, so that it can surface some of these assertions. And then the Visual Studio gets new features thanks to the feature enhancements in the language server. You can do now find references, get references, so it makes coding a lot more convenient and easier. And those are some of the main ones, but that's not everything, because this is a blog post. We didn't go through everything. The changelog has all the specific what's new, what's removed, what's changed, and what fixed. So those are, I won't let you read through this now. What we'll do now is sort of switch back into talking about specific features in little more detail. Sound good? Let's quickly take a look at the chat, and then we will get started. A lot more folks from Argentina, welcome. Folks from India, Netherlands, thank you so much for joining us. Honestly, I can't say what time it is there. I'm happy you're here. I'm glad that you are sharing your time with us on the live stream. Okay, I think we can get started now. Lazo, do you want to take over and talk about references and lifetime now?
Sure, I'd love to.
Do you want to start with the demo, or do you want to give an overview? I'll pull up yours in any case.
Thank you. Yeah, so lifetimes and references are something that's starting to be accessible to users in this release. To be fair, the compiler has been internally reasoning about lifetimes since at least 0.6. And certainly this is a feature that has been in the works for a very, very long time. It's been requested a lot. And yeah, with 0.7, you actually start to have some control, and you can actually start to take advantage of it as a user of Mojo. So,
Laszlo, if you don't mind, for someone who's not used to thinking about lifetimes, what would be like a quick high-level overview definition before we jump into the specific language features? Like, what does it mean for someone when you say lifetimes in a language?
Yeah, so basically what our long-term goal with Mojo is we want to make sure that this is a memory-safe language. And part of that is to provide the users with a model that's easy to use and basically guarantees that you don't leak memory, and also guarantees that if you don't want to deal with low-level details of managing particular resources, then you don't have to. And what we mean when we say lifetimes is pretty much the infrastructure around this and the language features that allow you to form references and make sure that you don't have to think about destroying them. Destruction happens automatically, and that you can do this in a sort of very intuitive way, if you will. So if you come from a Python background, then we hope that this will become something that's completely invisible to you. But Mojo, of course, allows you to drill a little bit deeper. And part of lifetimes, when we say lifetimes, is also the ability to open the box and have a little more control over what's actually happening.
Makes sense. Thanks for that quick definition. So it looks like you have a demo.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that that is new in 0.7 is that now you can form references to objects explicitly. And I just prepared a little example. This is actually straight out of the changelog. And then in the second part of this demo, I'll put a little bit of sugar on it. But for now, I would just like to walk through this. And this starts with some pretty straightforward code. We just have some strings. And then the new thing here is that we're forming a reference explicitly to one of these strings. And the interesting thing here is what's going to happen to the object A in particular. So now this object A has something that references it. So if object A was to destroy, then of course this reference would be pointing to something potentially undefined or uninitialized. And the idea with Mojo references is that these references actually extend the lifetime of the underlying object. So when I say aref, as long as aref is in scope, I can be sure that I can access it, and I can be sure that the underlying object doesn't disappear. So what does this mean in practice? This means that, for example, I can take this reference and I can modify it. In this case, we're just concatenating another string to it, and then of course, being a mutable reference, I can try to just print the object that the reference was pointing to. And so to demonstrate this, let's see what happens if I run this. And as you would expect, you have something that prints the contents of A first, which is the original string. Let me just update this again. The original string concatenated with the second one, so we have hello references. And then I can keep mutating it, and I can keep using it. And the beautiful thing is that even though lexically the last use of A is here on line 7, the compiler keeps A alive and makes sure that even on line 12 you can still access its contents. So this is the idea behind references, and this of course is not copying A or anything like that. So this aref, it's a very lightweight thing. And if you are interested in the implementation details, this is implemented through pointers, but there's a little bit of extra metadata that allows us to track these lifetimes. Shashank, are there any questions so far?
Haven't received any specific questions about this feature specifically. We do have some other questions. We'll get to those. But I have a question, I guess. So as far as syntax is concerned, the square bracket is similar to like a star thing in C, or like how do you draw parallels to?
Correct. Yeah. So right now, and this is going to change. Right now, when you want to actually access the underlying thing from a reference, you have to use this empty bracket operator, which is admittedly not the most pleasing syntax, and certainly we will improve upon this. If anything, one of the things that isn't fully baked out with respect to lifetimes is syntax related to this. So yeah, that's exactly like a dereference operator would be.
Awesome. There is one question. For lifetimes, any major differences on how Mojo lifetimes differ from Rust lifetimes that we should watch out for?
Yes, there are a couple. To get a full picture, I recommend that you read the changelog and the docs. We have a couple of things on this. Basically, our philosophy was that we want to learn and take ideas from Rust, but we want to do things a little bit differently. We want to do it our own way, which is going to be more convenient and more intuitive for people, especially who are coming from perhaps Python, and make it, I would say, a little more user-friendly, a little easier to use.
Makes sense. There's another question which is more for, I guess, a Python type of user. Why should I even use a reference instead of using the variable directly? I guess the higher level question is, what is the benefit of having references and creating references and using references?
Yeah, so sometimes you don't want to take a copy of an object. You just want to say, hey, here is this string somewhere else, and I just want to remember where it is, and I want to pass around this information that there's this string somewhere without actually having to copy it or move it. And so that's what references do. Again, it's under the hood. It's similar to a pointer, but it's safe and it's lifetime checked. So sort of where you would think to use a pointer, very often references work.
Okay. I think I saw another question come in. I guess you answered this already. Will the syntax for dereferencing the pointer be kept in the future? I mean, if this will not be needed for references. I think you kind of answered that this may change. So that's...
Yeah, and in particular, we probably want something, like automatic dereferencing for situations like this, so that you don't have to do anything. The compiler just detects that this is a reference, and when it's obvious, it modifies the underlying object.
Sounds good. Okay, let's go more to the next part of the demo, and we'll answer those other questions as they come in.
Yeah, awesome. So the second example is it's almost the same. Basically, the only thing that changed is instead of, you can see here, I directly modify this aref. I concatenate something to it. And in this case, I just replace that with a function call where I'm actually passing the underlying string. And so the question is, like, what's going to happen to aref and what's going to happen to a? And what do I get when I try to print this? And you can see the language server is already warning me that something is not right with this code. And what's going on here is I'm trying to take this string and this function as a what we call borrowed, which is roughly the equivalent of a const reference in C++. So this is an immutable reference to this string. And of course, if I have an immutable reference, then even if I form another reference to the underlying object, I should not be able to mutate it. And indeed, if I run this, I should get a compiler error that tells me explicitly that, hey, this cref here, this is trying to mutate an immutable reference. And so the question is, how could I change this code so that it works? And one of the things I can do is I can change this to in-out. And as you can see immediately, the language server warning goes away, which is great. And when I try to run it, I get actually what I would expect, right? I passed this string a to this function, which formed internally another reference to it and modified that reference. And the effects are visible right after I return from the function. And then I can, just like before, I can keep mutating the underlying object a however I want it, and I'll get the desired behavior.
Awesome, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I don't know if there are any questions so far.
No, those were all the questions so far on this topic. Again, for all of you watching, if you have more questions about this specific feature, please share them in the chat and we'll try to get to them.
Great. Yeah, so that sort of concludes the demo, unless anybody else has anything else to add to it. I'll hand it back to you.
I'm super excited for this feature, by the way. I'm just like, I've been asking for this for so long. I mean, like, obviously we knew that this was in the works, but like, this is going to really unlock a lot, like kind of the next tier of library development for us. There's just so many things that kind of kludges and hacks that we had to do because we didn't have this yet. And now that we finally have it, we're kind of getting unlocked to write a bunch of great new code.
Yeah, and I would ask the community to stress test this. Please take it and try to build cool stuff like you have before. And if you run into issues, open tickets, and we will triage it, and we will do our best to fix bugs quickly.
Yeah, I think I don't know if you want to add more, Laszlo. I think we did mention that this is a prototype and this is going to evolve. This is like an early version of what you will come to expect in a more full-fledged way in the future release, right? So expect some rough edges, I suppose.
Certainly. I think there, as I mentioned, there will be syntactic changes. Those are definitely coming. We're working on them. There will be a lot more use of references in the standard library, as Steph pointed out. This is going to be used heavily. And there are some corner cases where the lifetime checking might not be working correctly right now. We do encourage you to try regardless, and if you run into something, as I said, open a ticket. But the North Star is to have a language where unless you want to think about memory management, you don't have to, and you get safety by default.
There are a few more questions about this specific feature. There are a few which are not specific about this feature, which we'll do when we switch topics. So are in-out, borrowed, and owned gonna keep with lifetime introduced? I guess they're trying to ask if those features will remain with lifetimes.
Yes, they will. They will, and they, as far as we know, they should work correctly, as I showed in the demo, with the lifetime checker. So the compiler can basically reason about what happens to an object when it gets passed with either of these three conventions, borrowed, in-out, or owned. In fact, I can show it what would happen with owned, or which is actually the default, right? So sorry, which is not the default. Borrowed is the default. But if I explicitly say this object is owned, what would happen is that a copy gets created, and when a copy gets created, it still gets modified. So under the hood, this take string does, postpend the fire emoji, but because a copy was created, sorry,
but you can't see it outside.
Exactly, because the object that was modified is not A, right? It's a copy of A, and it has a completely separate lifetime. And so, the compiler can reason about these, and these are not going away.
There's another question. Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I was just going to point out this question here, asking when the reference gets garbage collected. So there isn't a garbage collector, but Mojo is a little bit different to Rust and C++ in that it destroys the value like as soon as on the last use. So instead of waiting for it to go out of scope, it destroys it earlier, which is kind of like a big deal for AI type things because you might have like a ton of stuff allocated. So getting rid of it earlier can be a big benefit sometimes. And is one way that Mojo is unique.
Yeah, plus one on that. And as I mentioned, if you look at this particular example, lexically, it might look like A is last used here, and naively you might think that, according to the rules of Mojo, that's when the destruction happens. And that's sort of the big deal about these references, is that they actually extend the lifetime of A. So A doesn't get destroyed as long as there are any live references to it. And yeah, absolutely what Jack mentioned, this is one of the things where Mojo is really unique. In particular, probably if you come from C++ and have RAII in your mental model, this is completely different. And there are many reasons, and we could talk about why this is a design choice that Mojo makes. But for now, this is just a fact, and that's how the language is going to move forward.
So another question: can you take a ref of a ref in terms of lifetime?
You should be able to. Yeah.
try it and let us know.
Yeah, try and let us know. Yeah, certainly it's a thing that people do. So.
Yeah. Okay, and of course, if things are not working as expected, please do file an issue and let us know. There's another question, a couple more questions coming in now. So it should still throw an error if a user tries to mutably borrow more than once. I guess.
I'm not entirely sure about that. Maybe you can file a. Maybe you can ask on Discord. So we can chat about exactly what you mean by that, maybe with a code example.
Yeah, if you pass like an in-out for a mutable like into two spots in the function, then it should like reject that as a compiler error, but it doesn't do that right now. But yeah, we'll add that later. It's an issue that we have open.
Great. Another question, which is, I think this was something Steph mentioned, right? It's been useful to him. You mentioned lifetimes have helped you get rid of hacks. Can you discuss an example? I think, are there any standout examples where this simplifies your life?
Yeah, so what used to happen is if you wanted to write code like this, you would have to create a pointer to this string, which was inconvenient to begin with. But then the second thing you had to do is is you had to manually extend the lifetime of A, and that's when you would see sort of things like this. I don't know if anybody ran into it, which is, it formally extends the lifetime of A because there's a use of it later, and basically with this you no longer have to do it.
Okay, now I have run into this. There was a piece of code that wasn't working, and I had to add the underscore equal to a d-type pointer thingy, and then okay, now I see.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that. Thanks for asking the question too.
There's also, just to add on to that, there's also a lot of cases in our standard library where we require things to be copyable or movable. And that's because we didn't really have the ability to say, like, we actually just want to reference this thing. And so incrementally, we'll be able to write like kind of more correct standard library types that are operating on references and not requiring everything to be like copied around everywhere.
Awesome. Are there any other questions that? I guess this was a follow-up to an earlier question, and I probably lost the train of thought here. I mean to renaming these keywords to STH like mute, mutref, etc. Chris mentioned that about somewhere. I don't know. Did anyone catch what the conversation was a follow-up to?
There was like a proposal, like a kind of blackshedding proposal for changing keyword names, except the decision was we'll wait till later until more of the language is kind of built out before we make decisions about renaming, stuff like that.
Got it. Okay, awesome. This is awesome. Thank you for all the questions. I know there are several questions here asking about stuff like platform support. I think let's. So there are a lot of questions here. A lot of folks asking for Windows support. There is a open issue. I highly encourage you to go and upvote. I know it's on our radar. It's something that we said we will eventually support. Today it's supported on WSL, of course, on Windows. There is an open issue, and I guess the only thing I can say is we are hard at work at making it available in the future. I don't know if any of you want to add anything more to that on the stream about Windows support. Okay, yeah, I guess that's the most we can share right now. All right. Question about, I don't know if this is relevant about the topic we just discussed. Question about functional programming in Mojo, some improvements over Python model and inspiration from other languages. Is there any quick thing we can share about functional programming in Mojo or how we think about it?
Yeah, like Mojo has a lot of functional features. Like it's important to the way that we're doing things, and I think like like lots of the performance heavy code, like vectorizing and parallelizing stuff, like it's all using functional type code. And yeah, it opens up like a lot of better ways to do things. So, like UI type stuff, I think Mojo will have some good libraries in that later on down the track, just because of all the functional features that we have in the language.
Awesome.
Yeah, maybe a slightly technical point, but since we were just discussing this, because Mojo is different from like Rust in that it destroys objects as soon as possible. And that's actually really important for functional programming. There's like a concept called tail recursion, which is very like deeply central to functional programming. And Mojo supports tail recursion, and Rust like can't really support tail recursion for types that have destructors. So yes, there's like we're deeply considering functional programming and kind of the language development.
Awesome. We'll take another question and move on to the next topic. There's still a lot of standard library stuff we want to discuss. GPU support, someone's asking, and all I can say is stay tuned, my friend. If you watch the ModCon videos, we did talk about some demos and examples. It's on YouTube. You can go check out what GPU support in Mojo may look like. But all I can say now is stay tuned. I guess there's the last question. I think this is interesting. The difference, is there any difference in performance between using references and raw pointers? After this, we'll move on to the next topic. Laszlo?
Where the goal is that there shouldn't be. ideally, lifetimes and lifetime checking, this happens in the compiler. And under the hood, the reference is just a pointer. At runtime, you should not be paying a cost for this.
Awesome. All right, there are still a lot of good questions. We'll get to them, but let's move to the next topic, and we'll still continue to keep answering these questions. So thanks, Reza. I think this was very interesting. I learned a bunch too. All right. So, my bad. There you go. Okay. Shall we move to the next topic, Steph?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Awesome. What am I seeing here? Dict.
All right. So I'm going to talk about some new data structures that we added to some standard library features, basically. Here's one that I think people have been pretty excited about. I know I have wanted to use this for a while in Mojo and have been sad that it's not there. That's the dictionary type. If you're coming from Python, this will look familiar, but probably like a little bit more awkward than you're used to so far. Still like a lot of kind of like work to do to kind of like hit the usability that we want to get to. But in the meantime, I just like kind of want to highlight that we added this to the library. So a dictionary, if you're not familiar, is an associative array. It's something like if you want to check whether, like let's say you want to have like a collection of things, and then like count how many of something exists, right? That is like dicts are just like a very important part of computer science, and we need them all over the place. So here you can see like from collections import dict, you got to import it. The dict type is parameterized on the key type and the value type. So this is true in Python, kind of. Like you can type your dictionaries in Python, but you don't have to. Obviously, in Python, you can have anything here. This is more of like a static type right now. It's more low level. So you can only have one type of thing in the dictionary. But then once it exists, you can kind of use it the same way you would use a Python dictionary. You can access it, get the length, get the value associated with different elements, or remove elements, that sort of thing. One limitation that I want to call out here is you can see that here we're using something called a string key and not a string. This is something we're kind of actively working on, but didn't make it into the 0.7 release. But the key has to be this kind of like, where's the example of this? Sorry for scrolling around. Oh, here we go. The key has to conform to this key element trait right now. And that means it's got to be hashable. And this is kind of, which means it has to be like, you have to be able to get an integer out of it. This is how we get a lot of the good performance out of the dictionary is being able to map a type to an integer that lets us sort of internally efficiently access or look for that thing. And you have to check whether it equals something else. And that's sort of a really typical dictionary requirement. Obviously, if you have a collection of things and you want to, get that thing out of the collection, you need to know whether you found it or not. So that's like, I think like the sort of most minimal version of this. These other methods here, these constructors are here for kind of the conversion. So you can see here, even though we called it a string key, we're just passing in a string here, right? And the way, and so these constructors are allowing us to do that. They're saying like, hey, you can just turn a string into a string key. It's fine.
Awesome.
Does
There are
that make
specific
sense?
questions here about this feature. Yeah, folks, feel free to ask questions about. I find I was super excited when I saw this because, as Steph mentioned, like dictionaries are something very, very fundamental in data science and in a lot of projects where you want to keep key value pairs of stuff that you want to maintain. I know one of the first questions I asked Steph when I saw this was like, and he already addressed it, is can I have like variable values, right, between ints and floats and strings and stuff like that. You did mention there was another variant or something we could use, right? I forget.
Let me jump on this question in the chat really quick. You can't use in for dicts at the moment. Is find the way to do this? Yeah, that's right. We haven't implemented. That's like on the list of features. Please file an issue about that. All these usability things we really want to improve. But yes, you can use find right now to do that.
And I will share the link to the place where you can file the issue. So that's github.com modular ML Mojo issues. So yeah, anything and everything, please file an issue. We love to see stuff from the community. Use it, and thank you.
And is the dict ordered? Yes. So the underlying implementation is very similar to Python's dictionary. So it's extremely efficient. Python's dictionary, because its dictionaries are so important to the language, it's extremely optimized. So we use a very similar dictionary implementation. It's really fast. But it does retain Python's kind of ordering feature. So although you can't iterate through a dictionary yet, that's related to references. We just are kind of getting unlocked on that. But when you can, you will be able to see them in order, like in insertion order.
There are a few questions there, Steph. If you want to fire through them, feel free to go ahead.
Let's see. We'll get to optional in a minute, I think. Adding n items to the dict is O of n. Yeah, so this is going to be kind of an efficient hash dict. The average time, there's a bit of nuance to this question, but the short answer is yes, it's amortized O of 1 for all the operations. So it's going to be all the kind of like nice behaviors that you expect with Python dictionaries in terms of speed. See, will there be a separate dict implementation for heterogeneous collections? So I think let's get to that when we talk about variant, but I think that you can still use the Python dict the way the kind of like docs say that they can. So that's really nice. With variants, you can actually hold heterogeneous data in this dictionary type. All right. Should we jump on to the next topic here?
Yeah, let's do that. We'll answer some of the non-specific standard library questions after we go through this example.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about two other features that I think made it in, but were not highlighted in the changelog, but I think were critical to implementing dictionary. One is variant, and this is really kind of the first dynamic type in the language. Everything else, Mojo really, unless it's like kind of in its sort of like Python mode, everything else is like kind of a static type. The compiler needs to know what type it is. And with variant, you can say this is going to be one type or another type. And you can put more types in here as well. You can have like a variant of many different types. And then when you pass something in, you don't have to know whether it's an int or string until you're running, right? You could load something in, conditionally, you could put a string in here and int in here. And then you can ask whether it's currently holding a string or not and get a string out. Or you can, get the other type out, for instance. And this is really great because I think like this is just kind of like key to a lot of usages, right? Where you like JSON, for instance, if you wanted to write something that represents JSON, you could have your dictionary type like hold a reference to something that's a variant of several different types. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess the question I have, and it's a little forward-looking thing, I guess. Will the expectation moving forward would be to use the dictionary as it is today with the variant, or should we see dictionaries that support by default, or if that even makes sense, right? Because a lot of use cases do require different values, or this is a recommended thing, or is
Yeah.
that something we want to community to ask and
I think
finalize?
I think that's right. I think like this is what we're going to move forward with for now. Like that's not to say that this is going to be like what exists forever. You could also, we have like an object type that supports kind of our, it's like a bag of things. And so if you want to have your value type be an object, you can still do that, and kind of get full dynamism that way. But I really encourage the community to kind of play around with this, figure out what works. If this is like really limiting, like help us figure out the way forward.
Awesome. Is this in the same context as a question about what is this the way for supporting enum types?
Yeah, so this is actually very close to Rust's enum type. So enum is kind of an overloaded term, like different languages think about it in a pretty different way. But this is essentially a Rust enum, just we don't have the nice like matching sugar yet. But you can think of this, it's implemented very similarly to like Rust's enum type. So that means you can have a variant of whatever different types that you want, and then use them. I think if you want like a C style enum, you really want something, you really just like want an integer with alias names for the things. And you can do that in Rust in Mojo already.
Here's another question. Object versus variant. Can we expect variant is much more space efficient?
Yeah, absolutely. So variant is going to be, it's going to take as much space as the biggest thing that goes in it. And object will, so it actually kind of depends. Object is always going to have that overhead because object is basically like a pointer plus some metadata about what's going in it, and then the underlying data. So if that metadata, like let's say I had like some really expensive thing here, like something like some type that like always took a megabyte of data here, and then I just put some like int here. Then if I, I might be wasting a lot of that space, and then an object might be more efficient. But the vast majority of cases, this is just going to be more efficient than object because like these are going to be these are going to be like essentially exactly the same size. And so you're just not going to have that overhead from the object type.
Great. I think those are the dictionary and variant specific questions we had, unless I missed something.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Can I talk about optional for a minute?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so optional you may recognize from a lot of languages are adopting something like this now. Optional is kind of like once we had variant, making optional was really easy. But one thing I really love about it, and you can't really tell from this, but it looks a lot more like the Python optional while being just as strongly typed as the other languages. So if I say if I need to pass an optional to a function, I can just pass the value none. I don't need to tell you, oh, this is an optional, but it's an empty optional. I can just say none, right? And I get the empty optional type, which is really cool. But what an optional is it's a thing that might be there and it might not. And so here you can see like A is an optional int, and it is there, and B is an optional int and it's not there. And you can check, you can say like if A, so this is going to be true because A does have a thing in it, we'll get the value out and print it. And if B, well, B is a none, it's an empty optional. So this is not gonna, this if is gonna resolve to false, it's not gonna print it. And then we have a couple helper methods. These are things that will also benefit a lot from references. We'll be able to add more kind of like helper methods here. But you can also, like sort of get a thing or a default. So here, like, these are going to be these are going to be ints that you get out, but like the first one, you know, A exists, it's 1. So, or else 2, well, it's still going to be 1. B doesn't exist, or else 2, so we're going to get 2 here.
So, question on the chat about dictionaries. Can you have a dictionary of a key and struct, some custom struct that a user creates?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Yep. You can do that right now. Any type that you want to put in the value. I think the limitation is that the value needs to be copyable and movable, and that's for this thing. And this is like one of those things that we're looking to relax once we have references, kind of once we push those through everything.
That's interesting. So I could like have a dictionary of like tensor with label layers and stuff like that, right? Oh, okay,
Yep,
that's
absolutely.
Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. I think here's a question about when these features are available. So which version of which version this variance and optional is coming? Well, the answer is it's already there. I think it's been around for a couple of releases now, and I think we should do a better job highlighting and documenting them. So everything you showed today, Steph, is stuff people can go start using right now, right?
Yeah, this is all in the standard library today.
It's all there. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking the question, and yeah, feel free to like start using them and let us know if you have feedback. The other question is if A is equivalent to if A is equivalent to if A is not none.
Yeah. So this is a bit of a technical Python question, but yeah, it's the first one. It's saying like there is something there. It doesn't check. So for instance, if I did optional of 0 here, if A would still resolve to true because there is something in the optional, even though the truthiness value of that interior thing is false. That's a kind of like subtle point, and that's great to bring up.
Here's another syntax related thing. We have or else. So there's a question they're asking, can't we do A or 2 instead of using
that's a great question. I need to try that. I think we have some things. Please try and file an issue. That should work. One issue is that when you do A or 2, if A is true, you're going to get the optional value. So it's not going to quite do the thing that you want coming from Python. And I think those are, whether it works or not, those are both great issues to file because that's like a great call out usability wise.
Another question, can variant hold a tuple with multiple different types and then multiple tuples all with different types?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Try it and let us know, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. I think those were all the questions about this. I do want to go back and address this one question that came. They said it's more of a product question. How do you determine what features roll out next? Is it based on demand? I think there are a few different signals. One for sure is the issues that you all file. So please go and file issues. A lot of things that get upvoted are ones that eventually make it. For example, Mac version was one of the most highest voted issue of all time, I think, and we promptly worked on that. Windows is close, so that's, you can be sure we're working on it. So please file issues because that's the best way to let us know what you're working on. The other thing, I guess, we also prioritize based on other internal needs, like some language feature that Laszlo is working on benefits Steph in building standard library, right? So there are those kinds of signals, internal signals. And then at ModCon, we also announced Max and Max Engine, an inference engine that we announced. So there are needs that those teams also expect from the Mojo language. So the few different signals, but as far as community is concerned, like the GitHub issues, we constantly look at those, and I think we have a couple of topics related to prioritization where we will discuss in a moment. So yeah, so the best thing you can do is go file an issue, or if something exists, like go upvote it. like do a thumbs up or a heart or something like that. All right, so this is all the topics you wanted to cover, right, Steph?
That's it. Thanks, Shashank.
Awesome. I know there were few other standard library stuff, but I think we briefly touched upon those. Unless we want to spend more time on what else did we talk about? We spoke about the dictionary types. I think this is something that's a feature that Jack worked on, which is being able to access number of physical cores, logical cores, and performance cores that's in the standard library. We spoke about reference. So yeah, those were all the key things that we wanted to discuss. But we do have another topic. Should we discuss this now? The Mojo committee stuff. Who wants to lead?
Sure,
Laszlo?
I can say a few things about that. Yeah, so we have started a small
Should I pull
Mojo.
up the so people have context? Should I pull up the newsletter or the GitHub?
Yeah, please show the newsletter. Yeah, absolutely. And then Jack will talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But basically, for the community, what this language committee will mean is just a more principled and uniform and predictable way of communication when you file feature requests. So nothing really changes for you in terms of your workflow. If you have an idea for something that you would like to see in Mojo, please file a GitHub ticket and we will triage it. The difference is going to be that internally we will have periodically recurring meetings when we will, with the committee, discuss these, and we will reason about whether that feature is something we want and on what time frame we might want that. And then we will communicate this very clearly with you through GitHub, but also through the newsletter. And maybe Jack, you can say a few words about that.
Yeah, so every couple of weeks we'll have this just summarizing all the different decisions we've made. So the comment will be in that GitHub issue, like Laszlo said. And then if you just want to get a summary of what decisions we've made, then you can come here. And yeah, this is just to kind of show that we do like take your feature requests seriously and we talk about them. And if you go to your next tab there, Shashank. So this is one that came from a feature request. So Jeff, one of the engineers, put forward a proposal internally. So we look at it internally and then we put it to the community so you guys can make comments and ask questions. So yeah, if you want to talk about this one, you can have a look at the proposal and then you can make a comment if you have any suggestions or you have any questions.
So the call to action for the community, Laszlo and Jack, is that take a look at these discussions and have a conversation in GitHub, right? Like go share your
yeah.
feedback.
So the last one we had was getting rid of the let keyword, which had tons of discussion. Like everyone had input on that. So if you have any input on this is to make it so that parameters can infer types from other parameters. So this is like an important feature that we want internally as well. So if you have any comments about this, just take a look and let us know.
Okay, the best way to get to here is the Mojo and then discussions here, right?
Yep, discussions and then general.
Okay, and then general.
That's it.
Awesome. So there was a question today about let keyword and if it's going away, and you just mentioned that there was a discussion about let, and I should probably find it if I search for it here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so was there a decision made on this, or?
Yeah. It's we will be doing this in the future. Yes, removing the let keyword.
Yeah, I think this ties into the answer I was trying to give the question about product prioritization. So I think these are all good mechanisms and ways to get your ideas surfaced and communicate with us. And we love to work with you and have your feedback in, right? Awesome. Anything else to share about the committee thing? So that's it. And I guess I'll reiterate the fact that Jack does these awesome newsletters. That's one of the best ways to get a pulse on what's going on, not just in the in the committee and the updates that we share, but also in the community. I think we just published one yesterday, right, Jack? You just published one yesterday.
Yep.
And largely we just recap stuff that happened in the week, the releases, some blog posts that we published or videos, upcoming live streams like this one you're attending. Thank you for all being here. And if there's a committee update, then those will be here too. So this is where you can sort of get the summary updates, if you will, if you're not constantly watching GitHub. Anything else to share on this topic?
No, yeah, that covers it. Yeah, just wanted to show that all the things that you raise in the feature requests, like we do take seriously and we care about. So, yeah, thank you for all the feature requests and issues.
Awesome. So I know we have just a couple more minutes. We'll see if there are questions that we couldn't get to. Could you share some sneak peeks for 0.8 release? I definitely don't have that kind of insight, but I think the best thing I can say is there's some exciting stuff this month. I think you all will agree on the stream. There's some exciting big new stuff that we've teased about at ModCon. Nothing that is too surprising if you haven't been following our news. But all I would say is like stay tuned. There's some exciting new stuff, new products and features and stuff like that. Other than that, where will this video be published? Oh, that's a good question. So all the live streams actually will be available on YouTube. They're under the live section, so you can go watch. There's 6 of these now. We started the very first one back in August, where we had Chris Lattner. He answered a bunch of like directional questions about Mojo, the language. So feel free to check the past ones out. They're very relevant. The features obviously have been evolving, but sort of the direction of Mojo and all of those are there. Feel free to catch those as well. And
there was one earlier in the stream about how they get t-shirts that we're wearing. So any community members that build something cool in Mojo, I contact them and I get their like address and we send out swag. So we send out shirts and stickers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, join Discord. I think, if you're not on Discord, join Discord. Share your work. Like folks have built some amazing projects and shared with the community. Many of you have seen Llama. Many of you have seen some of the other ML frameworks that are there. So those, we ask you for your information, and we've been sharing. There's a question about are you hiring compiler engineers? I think there are tons of openings right now in the company. I highly encourage you to check the careers page and apply. I as far as I can tell, we are actively investing and growing. So yeah, please do apply on the website. Highly encourage you to do that. I'm very happy with the speed Mojo is growing. Thank you. Thank you. I think the whole team and the company appreciates that. And
just one more question there. Can we see the library code? So that's something we will be doing. We'll be open sourcing the standard library. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I think we, Jack, that was we did. You're right. Like we had a couple of questions coming today about open source stuff. I think we've been like sharing our plans consistently. As I mentioned, the very first live stream, Chris spoke about his philosophy on open sourcing. Be sure to check that out. But also at ModCon, we open source the documentation. Now all of the docs that we have is open source. So we're taking like small steps to head towards that direction. And as Jack mentioned, like it's in the plans to slowly open up and give more access to you, the community, to grow the standard library, add in your own sort of features in the past. But that hasn't stopped many from building awesome projects on GitHub. I think we're always impressed to see some cool new libraries that show up. All right, I guess we are almost at time. We are actually 20 seconds away from the 1 hour mark. I think we can start wrapping up now. I want to say thank you all for giving your time with us. I know some of you even mentioned it was like 1 a.m. where you are. We deeply appreciate you spending your time with us at odd hours. And we also are happy to try other time slots. Feel free to share if something works for you better. Thank you for spending your time with us. Hope you enjoyed the live stream. Hope you learned something new. The video will be available. You can watch them offline and also the past ones. And again, I want to thank like Laszlo and Steph, who actually built the product and took time to be on here. Any final words from all of you before we close?
No, that's it. Thanks, Shashank.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. And stay tuned. Watch out for the newsletters. And we'll see you in the next live stream. Bye. Okay.